On this week's Vaticano, Pope Francis officially convokes the Holy Year of Mercy on the eve of Divine Mercy Sunday. Together with the Armenian faithful and church officials, Pope Francis celebrates Mass in St. Peter's Basilica, during which he proclaims a new doctor of the Church. He receives thousands of formators for religious life, and we bring you a children's book with a religious message. All this, plus street art with a religious twist. This and more now on Vaticano.
With an official document called a papal bull, Pope Francis has officially announced the extraordinary Holy Year of Mercy. This April 11th ceremony included the reading of parts of the bull in front of the Holy Door in St. Peter's Basilica. The document was given to some of the bishops present, representing the other major Roman basilicas in Vatican departments that oversee the Church in different parts of the world. The whole event took place during the prayer of Vespers on the eve of Divine Mercy Sunday. Pope Francis explained that the Holy Year will focus on the theme of mercy, a topic that permeates his whole pontificate.
For
this reason, the Holy Year must keep alive the desire to know how to welcome the numerous signs of the tenderness which God offers to the whole world, and above all to those who suffer, who are alone and abandoned, without hope of being pardoned or feeling the Father's love. A Holy Year to experience strongly within ourselves the joy of having been found by Jesus, the Good Shepherd, who has come in search of us because we were lost. Here, then, is the reason for the Jubilee, because this is the time for mercy.
The Holy Year is one of the most solemn and important events of the Catholic Church. The last year of its kind, the Jubilee in 2000, saw millions of pilgrims voyaging to Rome. It will start on December the 8th of this year and end on November the 20th, 2016. This will be only the 29th Holy Year in the Church, since the tradition started more than 700 years ago. Holy Years normally take place every 25 years. The next one is scheduled for 2025. On Divine Mercy Sunday, Pope Francis celebrated Mass for the faithful of the Armenian Catholic Rite in St. Peter's Basilica. During his homily, Francis used Frank words to mark 100 years since the mass killing of Armenians, particularly Christians.
In the past century, our human family has lived through three massive and unprecedented tragedies. The first, which is widely considered the first genocide of the 20th century, struck your own Armenian people, the first Christian nation, as well as Catholic and Orthodox Syrians, Assyrians, Chaldeans, and Greeks. Bishops and priests, religious, women and men, the elderly, and even defenseless children and the infirmed were murdered. The remaining two were perpetuated by Nazism and Stalinism.
Furono quello perpetrate dal nazismo e dallo stalinismo.
Pope Francis also used the occasion to make the Armenian saint Gregory of Narek a doctor of the Church.
The saints teach us that the world is changed beginning with the conversion of one's own heart, and that this happens through the mercy of God. And so, whether faced with my own sins or the great tragedies of the world, my conscience would be distressed, but it would not be in turmoil, for I would recall the wounds of the Lord. He was wounded for our iniquities. What sin is there that is so deadly that it cannot be pardoned by the death of Christ?
Francis offered the Mass in commemoration of the 100-year anniversary of what is remembered as the Great Calamity, or Metz Yegrin in Armenian. April the 24th is recognized in Armenia as the official date of the start of this event. Many faithful and members of the Armenian Rite were present for Sunday's Mass, including the Armenian Catholic Patriarch Nerses Bedros XIX. The Turkish government protested the Pope's citation of a joint declaration categorizing the mass killing as a genocide. Following the Mass, the Foreign Ministry of Turkey recalled its ambassador from the Vatican for consultation on the matter.
An exhibition of the Holy Shroud of Turin is now upon us. The cloth will be visible to the public from April 19th through June 24th. The occasion is the 200-year anniversary of the birth of St. John Bosco and the 2015 Expo in the nearby Italian city of Milan. Organizers are encouraging the participation of young people and those who suffer. The Vatican has announced that Pope Francis himself will make a pilgrimage to Turin from June 21st to the 22nd. The shroud is a linen cloth and is known to be the burial shroud of Jesus Christ.
On a sunny Wednesday, Pope Francis spoke in his general audience about the man and woman and their unity in marriage. He shed critical light on the theory of gender.
Continuing our catechesis on the family, today we reflect on the complementarity between man and woman. Scripture tells us that God created man in his own image. Male and female he created them. Man and woman bear the image and likeness of God, not only as individuals, but also together. In God's plan, sexual differentiation is not ordered to subordination, but to communion and procreation. This reciprocity brings harmony and enrichment to the human family. Experience teaches us to know oneself, and to grow harmonically, the human being needs the reciprocity of man and woman. If these are not given, consequences will follow. We're made for helping and listening to each other. Modern culture has opened new spaces, new freedoms, and new depth for the enrichment and the understanding of the differences of the sexes. But it has also introduced many doubts and a strong skepticism. I ask myself, for example, if the so-called gender theory is not the result of a frustration or a resignation, wanting to avoid confrontation of the differences of the sexes, and therefore it wants to cancel it out. Yes, let us take the risk of taking a step backwards. The repression of the difference is the problem, not the solution.
La rimozione della differenza, infatti, è il problema, non la soluzione.
Welcome back. This is Vaticano. With the arrival of the Easter season, Pope Francis is praying the Regina Coeli instead of the Angelus on Sundays. On Divine Mercy Sunday, he urged the faithful to encounter Jesus in their hearts.
How many of us seek in the depths of our hearts to encounter Jesus as he is, sweet, merciful, and tender, because we know in our hearts that he's like that. By rediscovering the personal contact with the love and the patient mercy of Christ, Thomas understands the profound significance of the resurrection, which transforms the inner self, and he proclaims his total and complete faith by saying, "My Lord and my God." Beautiful. How beautiful of an expression of Thomas.
Bella espressione questa di Tommaso.
After the Regina Coeli, Pope Francis greeted the faithful of the Oriental rites in all the world who celebrate Easter according to the Julian calendar.
Rivolgo un cordiale augurio.
I send cordial greetings to the faithful of the churches of the East who, according to their calendar, celebrate Holy Easter today. I unite myself to the joy of the announcement of the risen Christ, Christos anesti. Let us greet our brothers in the East on this day of Easter with an applause. Now everybody.
Loro Pasqua, con un applauso tutti.
On Friday, April 10th, the Holy Father received the President of Georgia in audience. They spoke of tensions currently affecting the region and expressed hope that peaceful solutions would be found. Georgia is a neighbor to both Ukraine and Russia, currently in conflict. They also spoke of Georgia's growing role in relation to Europe. On Monday, April 13th, Pope Francis received Daniele Mancini in audience, the new ambassador of Italy at the Holy See. Mancini is 62 years old, studied in Rome, and has been active in the diplomatic service since 1978. He has worked in Iraq, France, Pakistan, the U.S., and Belgium in his career. Pope Francis met an international group of formators of religious life in the Vatican on April 11th. Around 1,300 formators were in Rome for a conference with the title Living in Christ According to the Way of Life of the Gospel. It was promoted by the Vatican's department overseeing religious life.
Desideravo avere questo incontro con voi. Per quello che voi siete.
I wish to have this encounter with you because you are representing the educators and formators, and because behind each one of you, there are young people entrusted to your care, protagonists of a today that is lived with passion, and of a tomorrow that's lived with hope. Young people who, inspired by the love of God, seek a way to take on their own life in the Church. I sense that in your presence, and I direct a cordial greeting to all of them.
It is part of initiatives that take place during the current year for consecrated life, which Pope Francis proclaimed last November.
The Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the Syrian Arab Republic recently informed the United Nations Human Rights Council that since the start of the crisis 4 years ago, more than 10 million Syrians have fled their homes. These internally displaced persons, IDP, live in refugee camps like this one. In a 2-day session at the United Nations in Geneva, the member states discussed the complicated situation in Syria. During the intervention by the Holy See, His Excellency Archbishop Tomasi underlined that particularly children are facing numerous brutal consequences as a result of a persistent status of war in their country.
Many are not registered when they are born. And this is a kind of anonymity that will create problems for them in the future because they will not be recognized as members of a national community. A second big problem that the children are facing in the camps and in Syria itself is the lack of education. Over 5,000 schools have been destroyed in Syria alone, and in the territory that is controlled by the so-called Islamic State, many schools have been erased so that children may be educated only in the fundamentalist philosophy and ideology of this group of violent people who are calling themselves the new caliphate, the new Islamic State.
L'Organisation de la coopération islamique condamne énergiquement toutes les actions.
The Organization of Islamic Cooperation firmly condemns all violent and criminal acts committed by terrorist groups and underscores the fact that these terrorist groups that claim to be Muslims have in fact no affiliations with Islam. On the contrary, their main victims are Muslims.
Aucune relation avec l'islam et au contraire, leurs principales victimes, ce sont les musulmans.
Archbishop Tomasi suggested the creation of a communication office with data about displaced children and parents in order to reunify families.
Because God willing, peace will come to the region, and once reconstruction and reconciliation begin, then we need to have these young people to become the real future of the region, but with some education, with a clear identity, and with a new mentality that facilitate peaceful coexistence.
A children's novel has been presented in Rome, telling the story of a poor young boy with a dream.
This
book, my second one, is about a boy here in Rome who lives in poverty, but who is a dreamer. He has a lot of dreams, and although people tell him that dreams are only dreams and that he needs to stop dreaming, he continues working towards his dreams. A priest helps the boy, as well as his parents, with their situation. What happens is that one of his most important dreams comes true, which is his dream of getting out of poverty and meeting someone who is very special to all Christians. Without giving too much away, the person in question is the Pope. That can be said. He meets Pope Francis. Two children inspired me to tell the story and write this book. The first is a boy who met Pope Francis during his trip to Brazil and told him with tears in his eyes and a lot of emotion that he wanted to be a priest. And the second boy who inspired me was a boy who took the seat of Pope Francis during the meeting of the families here at the Vatican. Actually, in one of the chapters, a boy takes the seat of the Pope. The closeness that children feel towards the Pope, that humility, that freedom to keep dreaming. The age doesn't matter. One can be 5 years old, 24, 58, or 101. The important part is to never stop dreaming and to make our dreams about God. The book does not have a price. Instead, it is a voluntary donation. We have put the book at 10 euros, above all because we're giving this donation to a missionary from a parish with whom we have an alliance with. The book is called Lorenzo, the Bellboy, and is available in Spanish and can be ordered online.
Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano. Can graffiti be art? Larger-than-life-sized spray-painted images adorn the outside walls of one of Rome's poorest and infamous quarters.
Tormarancha is what I don't like to call a periphery, but let's call it less central than other parts of town. The city hall built houses here which are not ugly but have some solid structure, which in recent years has been understood by the inhabitants and by the city as less fortunate. We are in a new paradise, in a paradise in which we've contributed with beauty and with art to make a sense of solidarity, sociality, closeness amongst people, of those people who society marginalizes and creates a ghetto and pushes away. For me, this is the main instrument of doing so.
Big City Life is an initiative that wants to bring joy to the poorest with beauty, among them an image of the Mother of God.
This piece was done by an Italian street artist whose name is Mr. Clevera. He is an engineer, he works for an energy company, and he does this in an elusive way. Nobody knew he was a street artist. Now, due to the fame, everybody knows. The peculiar fact is that he's an expert of Byzantine iconography. And this is absolutely strange, because Byzantine iconography is something nobody loves. It's very simple, it's really meaningful for the old times, but now it's something really unused. Young artists prefer strong colors, pop-oriented colors. And this was quite unique as a resource for us to represent something which could be really meaningful for people here. We are in Italy, we have a Catholic tradition, we are in the city of Pope, and we thought to place Virgin Mary in this place could be something very powerful.
Initially not well accepted by the local parish, the image will be blessed, and in fact it already works as a channel of grace.
There was initially a homily against this image also because Tormarancha has a connection to Mary of Lourdes, so this Our Lady of Shanghai was not initially welcomed. But then Don Mauro came here and he met with the artist. Now there will be the blessing of this Madonna during the month of Mary in May.
Adesso ci sarà la benedizione della Madonna da parte di Don Mauro durante il mese mariano. There is a woman living here. She cannot smoke due to her health problems. She still smokes, but she used it to exit from the compound, passing here, and now, due to the Virgin Mary, she could not. So she stopped to smoke due to this painting.
Yet another image is much darker, showing two wrestlers actually on the outside wall of the complex, making it visible to passers-by. The artist has similar origins to those of Pope Francis.
Jazz, it's his artistic name, but his real name is Franco Fasoli. He's Argentinian, but he has Italian origins, and that's what the wall painting is about. What we can see is Argentinian wrestler, fighter, on his shoulders an Italian fighter. The fighter, it's because the jazz work is all about the fighting for rights, fighting for life. It's all about the natural instinct of fighting to reach, to achieve our goals. And so this is the common theme on all his body of work. In this case, what we see, this representation is about the heaviness of Italian history, seen by an Argentinian artist coming to paint for the first time in Rome.
The Big City Life initiative consists of 20 spray paintings overall, all being about 1,500 square feet in size.
Just a stone's throw away from the buzzing of Piazza Navona lies the Church of the Germans in Rome. It's the shelter for all German speakers making their way to the Eternal City.
We are the last ecclesiastical remnant of the Holy Roman Empire of Germanation. We are their German-speaking community for once, but in our statutes from the year 1850, in the College for Priests, for example, it still says that priests can come from all countries which once belonged to the Roman Empire of Germanation. I have visited all of those dioceses, from Iași in Romania until Reykjavik in Iceland.
The church has been renovated recently and radiates in all its glory with art from all the centuries since the Middle Ages.
It was always said that this church is the highest above ground catacomb of Rome, since it was dark and grey. It also needed some serious cleaning. It all began with the fact that this church stands on the fundament of 3 houses who in 1350 were bought by a couple of Dordrecht in the Netherlands and were made into a hospital. There was an oratory in the center, which in 1430 turned into a first church, a Gothic church, kind of like a smaller version of Santa Maria sopra Minerva. The church we see today is from the 1500s. And from the 15th century to the beginning of the 20th century, every epoch has left pieces of art in this church that all are in a phenomenal harmony with each other. Every day it strikes me more how artists from the north and from Italy have worked together, enriched each other, collaborated together, always in dialogue and with great respect to one another. I always say, we do not have a Michelangelo, Caravaggio or Raphael, but we have all of their best students.
Ich sage immer eines, wir haben hier keinen Michelangelo, keinen Caravaggio und keinen Raphael, aber wir haben von allen dreien die besten Schüler.
The altar image is of exceptional beauty and shows Mary with the Holy Family.
Wir haben, was unser Hauptkunstwerk
As the main piece of art, we have the only altar piece by Giulio Romano, paid for by Jacob Fugger the Rich, which was originally commissioned for the Fugger Chapel, where the cross hangs now, but already 3 years after it was put here, it had to be saved from the Tiber flooding, since the church was flooded completely at a man's height. It showed the Mother of God, if you ask me, the most beautiful Mother of God in Rome, with a child Jesus, the little John the Baptist, that indicates little baby Jesus and Saint Joseph in the back, in the shade. All the way in the back, almost not visible, there is Saint Anna with hens and chicks, symbolizing the hen protecting the chicks, like the Fuggers protected their money.
Also, the most well-known German in the Catholic Church, Benedict XVI, has a connection to this community.
Hier in der Kirche hat übrigens am Annenaltar während der Zeit.
Here in the church he celebrated at the altar of Saint Anne during the time when he lived here during the Second Vatican Council. When I became rector, I was presented to him and he said, "Well, I remember my time in the Anima. I'm an honor member. I replayed, "The honor is all ours, Holy Father." In the sacristy, we have a famous element, the 6 German popes from Gregory V to Hadrian VI, and was absolutely necessary to immortalize Benedict as well. There was no room for a statue, but we could make room in one of the windows. And so there is a modern piece, which is very fitting, an image of Benedict Bavarus, retaining the tradition of naming the tribe. So he greets us every day with his smile.
Zeigt und so strahlt uns jeden Tag entgegen.